Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. It is Monday, July 11th, 2022, and we got a news flash for you. The pandemic is not over. The latest Omicron offshoot BA.5 has become dominant in the U.S. and is driving a wave of cases across the country. Also this morning, while mass shootings continue in the United States, we were reminded over the weekend that it's a global problem as gunmen in Cape Town, South Africa, killed 15 and wounded several others inside a tavern there. Also, as the Congressional Committee investigation into the January 6th Capitol attacks continue and about to reach its closing arguments, more bombshell testimony against former President Donald Trump, this time from Trump's White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, who reportedly, I should say, did not contradict damaging testimony from a White House aide who testified earlier this month that Trump was, without question, the mastermind behind the deadly terror attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And also this morning, Creflo Dollar, the infamous prosperity gospel preacher, told his flock of about 30,000 members that tithing is unscriptural. And despite his estimated $27 million net worth, his multi-million-dollar private jet, 2 Rolls Royces, and a superstar and lavish lifestyle paid for by his believers, there's no indication Creflo Dollar will reimburse his parishioners. The question is, should he? We discuss all that and more with Barrington Salmon, the NMPA journalist extraordinaire, and also our own James Wright of the Washington Informer. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, let's start. First of all, Barrington and James, with the virus, America has decided that the pandemic, some have decided that the pandemic is over. Well, they couldn't be more wrong. The coronavirus has other ideas. The latest offshoot is the BA.5 variant, which has quickly become the dominant strain in the United States. And thanks to its elusiveness when encountering the human immune system, it is driving a wave of cases across the country. And here's the thing, Barrington, and I'll start with you. They have stopped keeping count of those with the virus, in part because of the home test.
Yeah, I'm seeing it up close as well. I haven't gotten it, but a number of people who I know, friends and relatives who never got it throughout the height of the pandemic, they're getting it now.
Yeah.
And folks, and I mean, just as sick or sicker than cases I had heard before. So it is disturbing, and we really should be masking and taking precautions. But I don't know, individual freedom to do what they want. That's what people are saying. So we're gonna be dealing with the consequence. And it looks like, I'm no epidemiologist, but it looks like it's going to just continue to spawn different variants for the foreseeable future.
And some of the variants more are stronger than others. This latest, they're saying it's one of the worst. James, what is it looking like in Washington? Or what are you seeing in your reporting?
Well, Dr. LaQuandra Nesbitt, who is the outgoing director of the Department of Health, said about a year ago that we live in a COVID world. And unfortunately, as Barrington alluded to, we're just going to have to just get used to having masks around. We're just going to have to get used to social distancing. We're just going to have to get used to doing the other things in order to fight COVID. We're just not going to go back to those pre-pandemic days when we were all happy and free and could skip around the streets like everything is okay. Those days are over. So we just have to make the adjustment. Unfortunately, this isn't like the Spanish flu that just kind of a decade, well, I should say a century ago, just kind of just went away. Looks like this isn't going to be the case with this.
Well, even with that, it took at least a decade for it to go away, if you recall. But Barrington, I just can't imagine Barrington skipping around, though.
Hey, I'm trying to envision those days that James talked about. I would love to have been in a place and space skipping around, and
Well, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has reported a little bit more than 100,000 new cases each day on average. But again, there's a lot of undercounting as they admit themselves because of the home test. People are testing themselves and they're not reporting it to any authority, and you don't expect it. Look, I've taken home tests, so
Yeah, me too.
yeah. So and I'm not calling up the CDC to say I took this test, and they're not encouraging you to do that. So we understand that the undercount is really there, and this is a lot worse than what we know.
Well, it is, because I've been reading about even China, and as sketchy as the media is sometimes in terms of telling you specifically what's really going on, they've been saying that they've been going back under massive lockdowns, closing off cities, closing off places and stuff, because it hasn't gone away.
And it's interesting because we can't even begin to envision that our government would even think about closing down again. The economy is already in the tank. Inflation is at an all-time high. They just wouldn't even consider it, right, James?
No. And here in Washington, a lot of people are looking forward to the Congressional Black Caucus having its annual legislative week coming up in late September, early October. People are already planning for that. Hotels are being booked. Parties are being planned. So it's just going to happen. We'll just have to take this by the ear and see what, at least in this city, what the Bowser administration plans to do. But you're absolutely right, Stacey. People are not going to stop for this. They're just going to continue their lives and then do what they have to do. And even when you have people like Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who tested positive for COVID, with all the protections that he has, it shows you just how lethal this strain is. But people are just going to continue to go on because that's just what we're doing now.
You know what I'm afraid of, Barrington, is this monkeypox.
I know.
It's just all of a sudden.
I figure if you don't have sex, you're okay, because they said it's sexually transmitted.
Is that right?
That's what they said. So,
oh, goodness grief. Oh boy. Moving on that note, gunmen shot and killed 15 people and wounded another 9 inside a South African township tavern early on Sunday. The attackers entered the tavern in the settlement of Namzamo in Orlando East soon after midnight and opened fire on patrons, according to the police. This mass shooting, as we see, Barrington, it's across the pond. It's everywhere now, and yet obviously we still have many who don't want to do anything about gun violence.
Well, one of the things that I think, I'm always trying to connect the dots. And the United States is one of the world's largest arms dealers. If you look at Mexico, the Mexican government several months ago, I think the Attorney General, or whatever that equivalent is, they filed a lawsuit against the United States because they're like, all you guys are sending guns here and we're dealing with the consequences. And, if you look at this issue writ large, you have, when you look at, so I'm not like a huge South African historian, but from what I've read, what I've seen, it's all the white apartheid government always had a bunch of guns. Then the folks who were fighting against the government, they had weapons. So it's a culture where there's a lot of weapons and that type of stuff. I keep on thinking that there's a whole lot more to this story, because there are tribal / ethnic factional fighting. The incident before, where they had the 22 young people who died and they claim that nobody knows how they died. Now that's weird. But I think that what we're not being told, or what we don't know, are the reasons why this is happening. Violence has always been a thing there. Rapes, they said, has always been high, been an issue. So I think that we're not getting the full picture of what's really going on. I don't know if we will. But.
Yeah. But James, Claudette Perry says that people all over the world emulate what happens in the U.S. no matter what it is. And it seems like that is certainly the case here, because this is not the first recent mass shooting in Cape Town.
No, it's not. And the thing about it is that Barrington really hit it on the head when he said that it is the apartheid, since it was set up in 1948 by the Nationalist Party, that instituted strict racial segregation and separation. And not only did they do that, Stacey, they instituted a policy of putting guns into these townships, into the Black areas, so that Black people can kill each other. And that's really what it was designed to do. Barrington is absolutely right. We are dealing with the after effects of that. And then you have, and I've been to South Africa, there's a lot of America piped into South Africa in terms of America culture. And people want to be what Americans are. I don't know why, but people want to be what Americans are, and then they want to emulate that. So as somebody who's very, very interested in South Africa, I'm really concerned about this, because I know, and I'm going to go back to what Barrington said, there's something behind this, and it is not just purely environmental. It has a lot. I think this has to do with some sort of conspiracy. What that conspiracy is, I don't know, but this just does not seem like something natural.
And the thing too, Stacey and James, we should not forget that for all the good that Nelson Mandela did in keeping the country together, they never changed the economic financial dynamic. So Black people have continued to be on the margins of business and finance.
Yes.
White people and other people from outside of the country own almost all of the resources. Yes. So it stands to reason that you're going to have some people who say, well, if I can't have it, ain't nobody going to have it.
Right.
And resort to violence as a way to express their rage, their anger. So I think that might be a part of it as well. And the African National Congress has proven to be ineffective and corrupt.
Right.
And so there's a great deal of frustration. And one of the things I thought about when I read the story was that in another time, before instant social media, we wouldn't have known, maybe for a day or two, that this was going on. But we're constantly bombarded with all this news all the time. And so it feels like the whole world's coming to an end. But the thing for me is that it just means that we have access to more news. Not that it's always been happening, because as the poem says, man's inhumanity to man makes countless thousands mourn. So there's always been this wickedness, this preying on vulnerable people. And more often than not, we look to our governments to mitigate the situation. And in most cases, they don't do it, they can't do it, or they're involved.
And I want to harp on something he just said. In South Africa, even though they should know better now, you still have these conflicts amongst Black peoples, the Zulus versus the Xhosas, and all of these other tribes. Now, as you know, the Zulus are the most numerous. But you still have the government, even though it's Cyril Ramaphosa is the president, you still have the government that's kind of driving the wedge between the Black peoples. And I think it's being supported by the white business establishment, as Barrington alluded to keep that wedge and to keep that conflict going on, which I think is part of why you're having all of this violence there.
Well, and you see that here, what you just described, you could be describing America too, right?
Yeah. And because the thing is that we understand that as long as the elite, political, whatever, as long as the elite keep us at each other's throats, we're not looking at them for the stuff that they're doing, for the kleptomania that they're dealing with the policies that they're pushing. Because this is not related directly, but if you think about the corporate business community writ large, they're the ones that's financing all these fools, these by Christian
The
nationalists.
infamous word from Barrington again.
They're the ones that are financing these legislatures that are passing all these anti-abortion bills, passing all this voter suppression. So it's in their interest to keep us under their heel and to keep us fighting each other.
Yeah. That excuse me, that's a great point, Barrington, and it's very true. You can't argue with that. They are the ones financing the from the president on down, right? It's certainly when you look at Congress and the seat of power, those who make laws, it's special interests. Look, you can't get any type of decent gun measures passed because of who? The NRA, right?
Yeah.
The NRA is pouring money into so many pockets, political pockets, and so it's look. That's just the bottom line. As Nancy Smith writes in Real Truth, and David Youngblood says it's 1795 all over again. And speaking of, Rep. Adam Kinzinger, a member of the House Select Committee investigating last year's Capitol riot, said Sunday that Trump White House counsel Pat Cipollone, who sat for a transcribed interview with the panel, didn't contradict previous testimony by other witnesses and will be featured in the investigation's final report. Adam Kinzinger says you'll see over the next couple of hearings a little of what he says. Certainly you'll see a lot in the report. That's really damaging because Cipollone was Trump's chief White House counsel. So how serious is this, Barrington?
I've been in and around Washington long enough to know that don't get my hopes up. This is the first time that I've seen it. Everything, there's every indication that the retiree in Mar-a-Lago is in trouble. He's in more trouble and in more legal jeopardy than he has been. But the cynic in me, because I don't know that Merrick Garland's going to do anything. Because, for me to continue to hear these people saying that we've never indicted somebody who occupied the White House,
but Barrington, let me. Sorry to cut you off, but haven't they laid out just an extraordinary case?
It's devastating, and if it was,
how do you not prosecute that?
If it was James Wright or Stacey Brown or Barrington Samuels, we'd be in Leavenworth or somewhere.
Yeah.
These people take care of their own. They claim that there's all these legal questions about whether they could even move towards indicting him, which I think is a bunch of foolishness. Because listen, there's every indication from everywhere that you look that the insurrection on January 6th did not end. It's continuing. Mm-hmm. And the party that used to be a political party that is now a white terror party, they're continuing their moves to consolidate white minority power for the indefinite future. That's what this is all about.
Now, you mentioned apartheid earlier. It sounds like apartheid. They're trying, at least attempting apartheid here.
They're not attempting. They're doing quite well. They're laying the foundation. They've built the framework. They control the Supreme Court. They even though they're not the party in power, they control Congress. Mm-hmm. So folks sitting around thinking, oh, this is America, the institutions will hold. The institutions almost fell apart January 6th, and it continues. And for me, there's no urgency from Biden. There's no urgency from Merrick Garland. There's no urgency from the people who are most in the best position to fight back against this, because we continue to deal with a political party, the Democrats, that are fighting Republicans with 1960s strategies. Mm-hmm.
And Barrington,
instead of understanding that you got to fight fire with fire. And I'll say this real quickly: The Untouchables is my favorite movie because Sean Connery said they bring a stone, you bring a knife. They bring a knife, you bring a gun. They bring a gun, you bring a bomb.
Yeah, I remember that well. The late Sean Connery. James and Barrington, having said all that, James, there is reports that later this month, Trump is going to formally announce his candidacy for 2024.
Well, let me just say before I quickly address your question, Stacey, Barrington said you and me, Stacey, are going to Fort Leavenworth. I think we're going to Guantanamo Bay if we did some of those things that the Trump people were doing. Oh my goodness, you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but if Trump runs in 2024, I'm going to be kind of with a smile on my face because it's really going to be a show. See, Donald Trump doesn't need to run for president because we're going to go through all of this January 6th stuff, and hopefully he will be indicted. I doubt it'll happen under Merrick Garland. He's just not that type of person. But if he does run for president, then we can just bring up all of these issues, and then he will lose. And so the Republican Party will be out of the White House for another 4 years. So I don't think it would be wise for them to nominate him. But I tell you this, it will be quite a show.
But James, if you understand that Donald Trump is the avatar of white domination in this country, he embodies all of the white fear, all of the white desire for control and power. I mean, I talk to folks every day, and I am amazed that they are so supportive of this liar and con man and thief. But I tell you, even as we, I'm not looking to Merrick Garland. I'm looking to Letitia James, Attorney General in New York, and the young lady in Fulton County, Georgia. I think that when he gets hemmed up, they gonna hem him up.
Yeah,
because
and you know,
from what the young lady, I don't remember her name, the young Fanny, I don't remember her last name, from Georgia. They're saying that if that goes to fruition, if her case goes to fruition, that would be the grounds to make sure he doesn't run again. And that's what needs to happen. That he no longer has the ability to run for office.
It's Fannie Willis that you're thinking about. But you know, David Youngblood says that that if Trump runs, he will win again. And you know, you look at all these multiple reports, and you mentioned this a little bit, Barrington, about how it appears that President Biden has his approval ratings are in the tank. His he seems even within the party weakened within the party, and there was some talk about, and James will probably appreciate this, if somebody runs against him in the primary, it could go back to what it was when Kennedy ran against Carter in the primary in 1980, and that led to 4 years of Reagan, 8 years of Reagan, and 4 years of Bush, right?
You're absolutely right. I remember that Carter-Kennedy race because I was a young puppy in high school, and I was young, and I had hair, and I was ideological. I was a liberal, and I was for Ted Kennedy because he was the Kennedy, and I was mad at Jimmy Carter because and I'm gonna tell you why I was mad at Jimmy Carter. I was mad at Jimmy Carter at that time because he instituted the draft registration. And like I said, I was militant and angry and mad at that time. And my militance and anger and mad at that time led to, as you just said, Stacey, 4 years of Ronald Reagan and 4 years of George H.W. Bush.
Well, two things, James, killed Carter, right? As far as his hopes, inflation, and then that failed attempt to rescue the hostages out of Iran.
Stacey, get it right. Ronald Reagan made an agreement with the mullahs in Iran to hold those people.
That sealed it.
That wasn't Carter's fault.
Yeah, that sealed it. And when did they announce the release of those hostages?
The day that
inauguration day, right?
Inauguration, yeah. These guys have been the kings of dirty tricks, and Democrats don't seem to have learned.
Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head with the hammer right there. From what we've been able to see,
it's sad, but you know, man.
Well, let's get out of politics, or are we getting out of politics? Creflo Dollar built his estimated $27 million fortune on the premise that It is the will of God for you to prosper in every way. The World of Faith teacher, pastor, and founder of the World Changers Church International in Georgia, he had scoffed at criticism of his lavish lifestyle, including a multi-million-dollar private jet, several high-end cars.
$65 million jet.
Do you remember that too, Barrington?
Yeah.
I think it was 2015, in which he implored his parishioners to put more money up for him to get this $65 million. I think it was a GS-20 private jet.
Gulfstream, something.
Yes.
I mean,
boy.
But you know what's the saddest thing about this, Stacey? These people, these fools, are going to continue supporting him. They're going to. I haven't seen or heard any mass exodus from his church.
But
no,
should
but
he?
I haven't heard any
should
demands from anybody saying that he needs to give back the money.
Yeah, and that's the question at hand, James. Should he? He said, "Listen, I was wrong. I should not have been preaching that. It's wrong. Tithing is Old Testament. It's wrong. Mm-hmm. Should he be with words? There should be action, right? Should he be giving that money back?
I would say that he should, but will he? No. Will his parishioners demand that he will? No. And I'm from the Bible Belt, okay? And we have pride in our pastors. We want our pastors to have a nice house. We want our pastors to have the best in terms of cars. We want them to look good. Now, never mind the fact that we poor as heck, but we want them to look good because they're an indication of what the Lord will do for you if you try to do for yourself. And this is America, and this is great, and this is what is preached in the Bible Belt. And not only are white people eating that up, but so Black people. So this is why you'll never see him give any money back.
But that's a lie that they tell, Stacey.
Yeah, Barrington. Listen, I grew up in the area where Black neighborhood, and my grandmother and my aunts, they were so heavily into the church. They were so heavily into their pastor, and it was not a well-to-do neighborhood. It was more, everybody struggled, but everybody, played together. But the pastor would come, it seems like every other week, with a new Cadillac.
Yeah.
And I just believe that same thing with, so I equate it this way with officers of the law. Why does a cop who's not in an emergency runs a red light? That's not a good look. Yeah. And I don't think that pastors who are riding around, and as particularly if their parishioners are, as James said, poor or dirt poor, as he said, riding around in Rolls Royces, and you want your pastor to look good, but your pastor should also want that for you, right? I mean, am I missing something?
Well,
no, you're not, because I have talked to people, parishioners. There was a young lady that I knew. She didn't have enough money for her rent, and she gives.
Oh gosh, I think we know the same person.
All that stuff religiously every week, and when she went to her pastor to ask for help, he was like, "I can't help you," and that for me would have been a good reason to firebomb the church.
Oh gosh, Barrington.
No, Brad, they're supposed to be the safety net.
That's right.
They offer themselves as a safety net. Right. I look at. Mimi and I were driving around yesterday, and we're looking at all these huge churches that have been closed because of COVID. Are they doing anything in the community? Are they feeding people? No. Are they making spaces for people that are homeless? No. It's like a one-way street. It's how much they can take, how much they can amass. I have been, I don't even know the word. Every time I think about Creflo Dollar, I feel like if he was close by, I'd punch him in his face.
Wow.
Because when Bishop Eddie Long was molesting them young men, and they came to him and said, "Help us," that creature told them to go back to Eddie Long, that they should continue to support him. So for a long time, he's shown himself to be anything but Christ-like but people in search of, I don't know, some
Yeah.
idol or something.
Yeah.
Well,
They
but
look
people
up
are in
to
search.
food.
Barrington, isn't most of the people, many anyway, are in search of hope, right?
Yeah.
And they look to these leaders for some sort of hope. Claudette Perry does say that if you read the comments on Twitter, the people, the quote unquote people, are saying that he is wrong, that tithing is mentioned in both the Old and New Testament, so people are still supporting tithing. Michelle Madison says, I don't mind if my pastor is living well. However, if his supporters are suffering financially, that's a no for me. And Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times writes that I believe that the neighborhoods in which these churches reside should improve the quality of life in these communities. And like you, Barrington, David Youngblood has called Creflo Dollar a con man.
It is.
But all of the above, though, you think about Paris Brown is what she wrote, Michelle Madison, what she wrote, and of course Claudette Perry. It seems to me that if you know anything about scriptures, Jesus talks about the poor widow who dropped in all she had, and he said it was out of her want for more spiritual things, right? And to be more close to Jesus. Now, in this case, Creflo Dollar was openly soliciting funds for his lifestyle, not the furtherance of anything spiritual, it appears, right?
Yeah. But the thing that, listen, I don't think that we can have any real discussion about this without linking what these prosperity preachers are doing to the whole concept of what this American experiment is about.
Right.
It's about capitalism. It's about making money. It's about being like Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or Gates. Let me be the one that makes $60 million every hour.
That's right.
And I wish that we were more discerning. I wish that we were more critical, that we could call these people out for the things that they're doing and find ways. Now, the best thing for me with Creflo Dollar would be if all the people in his church, or most of them, withheld their money to show him their disapproval, if they disapprove, because I honestly believe that the majority of them probably say, oh, Mr. Pastor, it's fine, keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because they're still at church.
Yes.
If they're really pissed off with what he's doing, they wouldn't be in church.
That's right.
And I don't know how many of them have decided that based on what he just said, that they're no longer going to be a part of his church. But I would hazard to guess that the majority of them are still there.
Yeah, and remember, Stacy, this is the Bible Belt. So if the minister says, I need a jet so I can fly to where I need to go, the pastor needs a jet. Well, we going to get that jet for the pastor.
So we can say, look at us. Our pastor has a jet. Your pastor doesn't have a jet. Nah.
Wow. Well, Cheryl Smith writes in, Cheryl Smith, Texas Metro News, and iMessenger Media. She writes that some people just like being conned. And Claudette Perry says that back in the 70s, many churches were a resource for the community for food distribution, protest organizing, paying utility bills, etc. In D.C., it was the All Souls Church. And Barrington, you referred to someone that we both knew very well, and her situation, and I remember that too. The individual you said you would have firebombed the church, and so it's the opposite of what Claudette Perry is saying here. You know that what churches were for and what they were doing in the community at the time, particularly as I'm sure she's referring to the Black church. Many were a resource for the community, and they were at a time, right? Is that gone? And is that gone now?
No, I don't think it's gone, because there are any number of church leaders that I know who are critical hubs in our communities. They provide food, they job access places and that type of stuff. The thing that strikes me is that we live in a time where ministers, preachers, they don't want to offend the mayor. They don't want to offend their donors. I think, you know, we're in a time now where we are slowly moving back from where people were quiet to more protest, more resistance, and that type of thing. And I think that as a society, we have gotten fat and lazy, and the churches reflect that. But as we look at what's going on, because I'm telling you, the Supreme Court's decision to reverse Roe versus Wade is the Hail Mary that the Democratic Party needed. I think that's the only reason why they're not going to lose their shirts in November.
Yeah, well,
Because
we're going to leave it with
people are upset, and people are mobilizing.
We're going to leave it with some wise words from Cheryl Smith again. Con artists are all around us, but everyone around us is not a con artist. Cheryl Smith, Texas Metro News. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barrington Salmon and James Wright. What a conversation this morning. Thanks for joining. Let it be known. We'll bring you another conversation tomorrow.